guys, welcome to today's lower body foam roller series for runners. You will need a small ball. I'm going to be using a yoga tune-up ball, and then you'll also need a foam roller as well. I'll link down in the description below where you can find what I'm using, but then also it could be appropriate to use a tennis ball, a lacrosse ball, and whatever foam roller you have at home is probably going to be just fine for what you're doing here in this series as well. I also have some previous videos where I talk about what foam roller is most appropriate for the different body types and what you're aiming for. Ideally, when we are foam rolling, the whole point of it is to release tension in the body, improve our flexibility, improve our mobility. So if what we're using is making us grimace, hold tension, I like to say, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, like in discomfort, it is going to be uncomfortable, but it should be like maybe like a 4 or 5 and not more than that, because then that could have a negative, it could have a negative effect through our nervous system and end up making us tighten in response to what we are trying to do to help our body. So you want to find that fine line, that Goldilocks point of what works for you. We're going to be starting out with the small ball. So if you have one nearby you, go ahead and grab it and we'll start standing on our feet. If you are new to my YouTube channel, I'm Laura. I'm a certified personal trainer and Pilates instructor. And if you are not yet subscribed to my page, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and welcome to the community. You probably have your ball by now, so let's go ahead and stand up and start by rolling out our feet. All right, so I'm going to start by putting the ball mound of my foot on top of the ball here. And as I start on that top pad of the foot, so just right underneath my toes, I'm going to start going on a side to side fashion here, kind of like a windshield. And as I go from side to side, I'm also trying to curl my toes over and lift my toes up. So I'm working the tendons and ligaments, starting to wake them up. You have a lot of nerve endings that end at that distal part of your foot, and that your foot is going to pick up and receive information and send it to the rest of your body from those nerve endings. So that's why as a runner, it's really important to roll out your foot, because you're going and articulating through your foot as you're running. And so by rolling out your foot here, we already start to wake up the perception of them, and it'll help with your ankle mobility, help with the knee alignment, help with your hip alignment, hip mobility. Because of all of you think of the nerves as like the highway of information for your body. So we're starting to wake those up here so that it can start to send information to the rest of your body. You can go in an up to down pattern, maybe even play around with going around in circles. I've now moved around to the arch of my foot. I don't put too much heavy pressure on it here. I don't want to put all my body weight on here. It's just, like I said, waking up the tissue, waking up the fascia, so that my feet can send the information to the rest of my body. Maybe you also want to do your heel. I don't really spend too much time on my heel per se. I do have the tendency to roll out on the pinky side of my foot. So what I personally like to do is spend a little bit more time on that either inside portion of my foot, curling the toes over and trying to curl my arch in, or in the center part of my foot, really trying to spread that arch over from side to side. So a really easy way to see how your feet like to behave is if you have a used pair of shoes, your used pair of shoes that you've had for a long time, you can look at the underside of it, and if there's any fading on the underside, that fading will be more towards the side that you like to lean your body weight to. So I switched feet. If you didn't already, you can. I won't spend too much time here just for the sake of the video length. So you know that you can always pause the video if you want more time to roll out your feet. And I'm going to grab the foam roller and we'll get started with the rest of our lower body here. So once I've done both areas of my feet, which is pretty cool because now here as I'm standing through the carpet, I actually feel like I can feel the fibers of the carpet more, which is pretty neat. I'm gonna come down and start to roll out my calves. So the calves, I always roll them out, even if I'm not gonna be running for the day. And that's because, yes, you have a lot of tendons and ligaments that are in your feet, but a lot of them, they have the belly of the muscle in your calf. So if you're someone that has arch pain or foot pain, rolling out your calves could be something that you might find beneficial adding it in on a regular basis. As I'm rolling out, I apply the body weight that feels good for me. Like I said at the beginning, we're kind of aiming for something that's like on a scale of 1 to 10. Maybe it's a 4, maybe it's a 5. Because I roll out regularly, I don't really have too much knots in my legs, but sometimes I do. I just recently switched my running shoes, so I have been having a little bit more on my left leg. Right now I'm rolling out my right. And as I'm rolling up and down, I'm also changing the angle of my foot. So I'm turning it in, I'm turning it out, so that way on the tendons, on the muscles, on the fascia, it's not just going with the grain of how the muscle lies in the body. We also get to go over it in a side-to-side fashion as well. So we're kind of going in a different direction of how the muscle runs. You could do both legs at the same time. I prefer to do one leg at a time because my legs, they actually get sore differently. And I want to be able to give some love, give some attention to the tight places in my body so that I can release that tension, so that I can be able to access more power, more elasticity. So that I have a blog specifically on how mobility can help with sports performance. So I'll go ahead and link that down in the description below. But the more range of motion that you have through your ankle joint, in this case, that's going to help you with that push, with that gait stride. Could also help you engage a little bit more through your glute when you have more ankle mobility as well, helping you have more power through your run. And then some other things that we can do, as I'm here more towards the rightish side of my calf, I can tell that I have a little bit of a knot here, so I'm going to flex my foot and point my foot. So I'm staying on that knot and doing kind of like a trigger point release here, and using that contraction, that elongation and that contraction of my own muscle energy to help work out the knot. And then now, actually, as I go back to rolling it out, it feels significantly better. I'm going to stick with my right side. You can pause and go back to your left leg if you would like to. And then I'm going to do my hamstrings. For me, my hamstrings are not very tight, but I'm not going to ignore them for you. And I'm going to do both of my legs at the same time here, just because my hamstrings aren't very tight. So I'm being mindful of not going behind my kneecap. I'm staying just above it. And if you were someone that had tight hamstrings, you could feel that there were some places where you had some knots on them. Take a moment, take a pause on them. You could, once again, work on flexing the feet, pointing the feet, seeing if that changes any differences on how that tendon feels along the foam roller. I find that when you do both legs at the same time, it does require a little bit more upper body strength. So something to keep in mind for doing both legs at the same time versus one. And then next, I'm going to come up to my bottom. As I move that foam roller to my bottom, I'm going to sit slightly on top of it, sticking with my right leg because that's the one I started with. I'm going to take it into a figure 4 position. So I take the side of the shin bone on top of the opposite thigh, and then I'm going to lean over towards my right. Now here, up to down motion once again. I'm not on the hip bone. I'm staying on the flesh, on the tissue, the meaty part of my bottom. Still going in that up to down fashion on the foam roller. And I didn't mention it before, but I'm going to mention it now. On all of these, I am bracing my abdominals, which means that I'm using my core muscles to help support my back as I'm rolling around on this foam roller here. Any parts that you feel like there's a knot in them, you could close the knee in towards your chest. You could open the knee away towards the floor. So another trigger point release where I'm trying to stretch that muscle tissue in a different direction. So I'm not just getting the foam rolling on an up to down. Here, I'm getting that side to side as well as the muscle gets to lengthen and then shorten here. I'm only going to do this for a couple more times, and I'm going to go back to rolling up and down. And feeling significantly better. I have another one a little bit higher, but just for the sake of this video, I'm not going to stick too long on it. And as you're rolling through your body, you don't have to stay on different body parts as long as I'm staying here. You can pause the video, stay there a little bit longer. You could skip ahead after. Please just graze over it a little bit. You saw that I did roll out my hamstrings. Graze over it a little bit, see how it's feeling on that specific day. And if it's feeling pretty good, no need to ruminate on it for that long. You can go ahead and bypass onto the next part of your body. So after the bottom, we're gonna go towards your thigh, your quads. Placing the foam roller underneath your thigh. This is another one where you could do both of them at the same time. I am quad dominant, which means that I use my thighs a lot. In Pilates, I always have to be thinking about using my belly instead of using my quads because my thighs are strong, so they want to be the leader of the party of a lot of movements that I do. So I am going to do one at a time, but you are more than welcome to roll out both of them at the same time. You do have 4 different quad muscles. That's why they're called the quad, because it's a party of 4. For me, that front one called the rectus femoris, that's the one that tends to be the most tight on me. So I do spend a little bit more time through that center part of my thigh. But you could also rotate the foot inwards and rotate the leg so that you get a little bit more of that outside, vastus lateralis. And go a little bit more towards the inside, and then down towards the knee too. There's one called the VMO. That for me is not super tight, so I'm not going to spend too much time on there. For me today, I really feel it more, on that rec fem. So I'm going to stay there a little bit longer. Another trigger point release exercise that you could do here. You could sit on that part where it feels super tight on you. You could bend and you could extend. This one for me, I have to be very mindful of how much body weight I'm putting on the foam roller because it can become quite intense real fast. So I'm on my forearms here, kind of hanging out in a plank position, shoulders pulling down my back, bracing my abdominals, and that helps me to balance out how much body weight I'm putting on that foam roller. You could also have it bent and rotate side to side here. Oh, here, hello. I'm gonna do a little bit of up and down here as well. So you can just play around with the different orientations, different angles of your body to see where you could spend a little bit of time digging deeper into the muscle, into the fascia. And then for time's sake, I'm going to show you the inner thigh one. So for this one, it looks kind of funky. You put the foam roller at an angle. So you can see that I have one leg that's straight, and it kind of makes the letter X. Boop, boop. Then I'm going to lower my body, still keeping that letter X. The foam roller, once again, not on my knee joints, a little bit above it. And then I'm going to go towards my pelvis, and then I'm going to go back towards my knee again. This one, it's a little bit more limited range of motion. You can't really get up as high along the adductors, but it's better than nothing. And if you're feeling any knots here, once again, use your hands to help you balance. You could bend and extend, bend and extend. All right. So this next one was one that one of my clients said was their favorite, which was interesting because I actually wasn't incorporating it into my routine regularly, but knowing that shin splints is something that is very common in new runners, whether they start add too many days of running right away. They have too much duration of running. They're adding too much mileage too soon. There's so many things that can affect why someone gets shin splints, the alignment of their feet, tightness in the muscles, so many things. But one of the ways to foam roll your shins, your anterior tib, actually is in an exercise that I do a lot with my clients. And you would support your hands right underneath your shoulders, have your shin bones right on top of the foam roller, stand on top of the foam roller here so you can see I'm kind of like in this bear position, and then press and pull, press and pull. So this one, it does require being able to support your own body weight. If you were on your forearms, you don't really have as much leverage up to be able to get the same forward back motion. And you can, if you're foam rolling here with me, you can play around with the different angles, orientation of your feet. So for the anterior tib, I have my toes facing in towards each other. You can go towards the outsides with the toes. So play around with that, see if that's something that feels good for you. The way that I would do it on my own before is I would grab the ball once again, and if you're feeling any signs of shin splints, what you could do is you could take the ball and roll it up and down on your shin. But also remember too, you could also benefit from using the ball underneath your foot as well, because maybe what's happening in this shin, in this anterior tib, is actually connected to the orientation of your foot as it's striking on the floor. Maybe, it's a possibility. Another one, and last one that I'll show you through, is one for the peroneals, which are here on the side of your leg. Still on my right leg. I'm going to come onto the side of my body here. You notice that I stepped my foot over the foam roller, take myself up, and I just go up and down. Oh, it feels so good when I get towards the top. Up. So remember here, not on the knee bone. Here's where my knee is, and the foam roller ends just a little bit shy of that foam roller. Ooh, that one feels good. All right, you guys, and that's basically it when it comes to foam rolling the lower body for runners. I took you through one side only. You could do both sides at the same time. There's a couple exercises like the piriformis and the side glutes, glute min and mean, that you would have to do one leg at a time, and also those peroneals that I was telling you about, that also you would have to do one at a time. But things like your calf, hamstrings, thighs, those could both be done at the same time if you're trying to maximize your time. But also remember that sometimes when you try to maximize your time, you minimize the efficiency of what we're doing. So just keep that in mind, listen to your body and what it really wants you to do. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And like I said, if you're not already subscribed to my page, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you can continue to get content that will help you on your fitness journey. Thank you for coming, and I will see you guys in my next video.